Hey, welcome to the summer session at Austin Community College. I'm Dan Grandgard, and I'm teaching you a section of a course called Introduction to Psychology, which is designed to be an introduction to both the science and the profession of psychology. There are people out there called psychologists who do psychological evaluations of people, and they do psychotherapy with people and so on. But the practice of psychology wouldn't be worth anything if it weren't for the science backing it up. And so we will be taking a look at both the science and the profession of psychology this summer. I don't know about you, but I always love taking summer courses, and I love teaching summer courses. They go fast. This course will be over in 5 weeks. And so I know when I was a student, I always enrolled in courses I didn't really want to take during the summer. There's courses like that. It was things like, for me, U.S. history and trigonometry and stuff like that. And it's like, well, I can stomach it for 5 or 6 weeks and just take that course and nothing else and just focus my study on that, get it over with, and then I can go on to study the stuff I really was interested in, like psychology. So maybe you're taking this course because I'll get it out of the way. And then again, maybe you're taking this course because I think I might really be interested in this and I want to get into it and just focus on it and not a whole bunch of other courses at the same time. And so, whatever your reason for taking the course, I would have one warning for you right at the beginning, and that is it moves fast. We will do everything we would normally do in a 16-week summer, not summer, but regular semester class, and we're going to do it all in 5 weeks. So let me start by telling you a little bit about myself and where I'm coming from as far as teaching this course is concerned. First of all, I've been a licensed psychologist for a long, long time. I have several decades of experience as a psychologist. I earned 3 degrees at Baylor University. My undergraduate major was sociology, and then I minored in psychology. And then I earned a master's degree a Master of Science degree in educational psychology. And then I earned a doctorate in educational psychology. So let me trace my career for you. While I was working on my doctorate in educational psychology, I taught an undergraduate course similar to this one. And I did that for 2.5 years. My first real position as a psychologist was I was a school psychologist for the Education Service Center Region 12 in Waco, Texas. I was the only doctoral level school psychologist serving 81 school districts in 12 counties. If you can imagine that. I'd get up in the morning and drive 50 or 60 miles out to some little town and give a few IQ tests and things like that. That wasn't my idea of being a psychologist. And so, I continued to apply for positions other places. I especially wanted to come to Austin. my second summer semester when I was a student as an undergraduate, I shared an apartment with a guy from Austin. And one weekend we were out of food and out of money, and he said to me, this would be a good weekend to go visit my parents. And so came down here, fell in love with Austin, said, boy, that's where I want to live someday. And so I kept applying for a position as a school psychologist in Austin, and I landed one after a year of working in Waco. And so I came down here and I was a school psychologist for the Austin Independent School District for 8 years. Every year I was assigned to 3 or 4 different school buildings, and there was always one elementary school, and then often a middle school and a high school. I spent a couple of years as the school psychologist at LBJ High School in Austin. I spent 5 years at Austin High as the school psychologist. Most of the schools I worked in were on the east side of town and the southwest side of town. The only school I survived the whole 8 years at was Oak Hill Elementary. I always like to say I survived 3 different principals at Oak Hill Elementary. When you're a school psychologist, everybody's your boss, not just the head of psychological services for the whole school district, but every school building you go in, the principal wants to tell you what to do, and the teachers want to tell you what to do, and all of that. So it's a interesting kind of position because you're blending education in the school curriculum with psychological services. So I did that for 8 years altogether. And then one thing I would tell you is that, and while I was a school psychologist, I supervised school psychology interns from the University of Texas at Austin and from Texas State University down in San Marcos. One thing I would tell you about psychologists is eventually they all get to the point where they say, I want to do things my way, and they decide to start a private practice. And so I started a part-time private practice, and I had a friend who was a gynecologist and an obstetrician who let me use his office rent-free in the evenings and on the weekends. And so I started a private practice in psychology in a gynecology office. I could tell you a lot of fun stories about events that happened while I was doing that. But it worked out well for a couple of years. The great thing about being a school psychologist is you get your summers off. And so, I would work all day for the school district from, like 8 in the morning till about 4 in the afternoon. And then I would go to my private office. But in the summer, I could do my private practice full time. Well, there was a student at Austin High who, although she was graduating in the top 10 in her high school class, she wasn't going to get to be the valedictorian, even though she had like a 4.0 grade point average, because she hadn't taken as many advanced placement and honors classes as some of the other students did. And so this made her really angry that she wasn't going to be the valedictorian despite having this impressive grade point average. And so she started sending death threats to the principal and the assistant principal and people like that, And the assistant principal's first name at Austin High at the time was Jack, and she sent him a poem that said, "Death be nimble, death be quick, forget the candlestick, kill Jack." And then you always knew it was her stuff because she had her own little logo that she would put at the bottom of everything. And so when you do that, you get to meet the school psychologist. And as you probably could predict, this student already had a psychiatrist on the outside. And so I started consulting with him, and he and I really hit it off. And he suggested it might be great if I moved my private practice into his office. And so I said, sure, that'll work. Of course, I was paying rent then. It wasn't free like it was in the gynecology office. But anyway, he started giving me lots of referrals for psychological evaluations. A lot of psychiatrists are more into prescribing medication than they are actually into, well, they don't do psychological testing. That's the realm of psychologists. And so he would give me lots of referrals for doing psychological evaluations. And then often if I hit it off with the client, he said, why don't you go ahead and do the therapy too? By the way, this guy was the only child psychiatrist on both the state and city's health insurance plans. So we had a lot of business. People from all walks of life coming through the doors, getting services from us. There was also 2 other psychologists in the office, a clinical psychologist and a clinical neuropsychologist. So amongst, I guess I should say, the 4 of us, we could pretty much evaluate and treat anything that came in the door. I got to the point where I was so busy in my private practice that I needed to make a decision, should I resign from the school district and just do private practice full time. The school district actually offered me a promotion, but it would mean not just making more money, but working year round. And I didn't want to give up my private practice, so I said goodbye to the school district and I jumped all the way into private practice. And so I was quite busy. The psychiatrist, however, loved being a psychiatrist, but he hated dealing with insurance companies. And he especially was frustrated with dealing with managed care, health, and an opportunity came along for him to move to Dallas, where he would become chief psychiatrist of an adolescent unit in a psychiatric hospital. And so he did. He went to Dallas. He tried to get me to come with him, but I wanted to stay in Austin. So I continued on with my private practice for a while. While I was working with the psychiatrist, I also was able to obtain clinical privileges at all the different psychiatric hospitals in Austin. At the time, there were 4 private psychiatric hospitals in Austin. And so, I was quite busy doing testing and therapy in the hospital and in the office. An opportunity came along. There was a large psychiatric clinic in Dallas that decided to open a satellite clinic in Austin, and to make a long story short, ended up merging my private practice with that large psychiatric clinic. I became chief psychologist, director of intern training, and director of testing for that clinic. The clinic was really a pretty big operation in Austin. We had 50 professionals working at the clinic, half a dozen psychiatrists, equal number of psychologists, clinical social workers, licensed professional counselors, nurses. The clinic was so big that we had our own day hospital and our own 20-bed inpatient unit over at Shoal Creek Hospital. So for the next like 7 or 8 years, I was doing that. And that included leading group therapy at the hospital with inpatients every other weekend for like 7 years. So I was also doing groups in the clinic. The clinic was so big, we even had our own conference center and everything else. This was a big operation. We had our own daily national call-in show. I was on the radio periodically taking calls from people and so on. So, I was extremely busy. Eventually, the clinic got bought out by a chain of clinics that had their headquarters in California. They closed down the Austin operation because of financial losses related to managed care. I went back into private practice. I opened an office out in Westlake Hills, and I started doing private practice again. After about a year or two of that, an opportunity came along to start teaching courses here at ACC, and I jumped at the chance because I absolutely loved teaching college while I was working on my doctorate and teaching undergraduates. So, this opportunity to teach at ACC was really exciting for me. So initially I was teaching 3 classes at ACC, and then an opportunity came along to also teach at St. Edward's University, and I did that for 5 years. Every imaginable course you could probably name, everything from counseling to abnormal to tests and measurements, to you name it, social psych, plus all the ones that I similar to what I teach at ACC. And so I was extremely busy. I can think of one semester I was teaching like 3 classes at ACC and 4 at St. Ed's, and then still trying to do my private practice. So it got to where I only could do my practice on Fridays, and I was only bringing in enough money to cover my overhead. So, and then an opportunity came along to start working at ACC full-time, half-time teaching courses and half-time counseling and advising students in what today is called students accessibility services. And I absolutely loved doing that. So all in all, I'm in my 26th year at ACC. And so, that means I started teaching here before some of you were born, if you can imagine that. It's kind of hard to get adjusted to being kind of an old pro, if you will. Most of my career, I was always the young doctor, and suddenly I'm the old pro. So I'm really looking forward to once again teaching summer classes, and let's the first thing I would tell you is I've told you a little bit about myself because I'm known for backing everything we study up with a real life example. I've had decades of experience as a clinician. There's so many psychologists who work in academia. Um, you know, they might write textbooks and they might teach courses, but they've never really been a clinician. And consequently, you might read a textbook that they've got examples of this or that they heard about or they just made up. Everything that we study in this course, I will back up with a real life example of psychology in action. And I think that will help make the course come alive for you and be relevant to your own vocational aspirations. So one of the first things I'd like you to do when you're finished watching this video is email me a little bit about yourself. Send the email to my ACC email address. And by the way, everything you do connected to the course at ACC, you should use your official ACC email, not your personal email or something like that. The college is very concerned about security and that sort of thing. And so they want everything to be done using your official ACC email. So as soon as you get a chance, shoot me a little email message. My email address is dgran, D-G-R-A-N, at austincc.edu. And tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, where you're from, for example. We have all, it's kind of rare these days to run into anyone in Austin who's a native, but maybe you are one of those individuals. But tell me a little bit about your background, where you grew up, where you went to school, where you went to high school, what your major is, what your career goals are, that sort of thing. That'll help me get to know you quickly. Now, if we were in the classroom, what's neat about summer school is class meets every day. And so you get to know students rapidly instead of only seeing them Mondays and Wednesdays or Tuesdays and Thursdays or something like that. In fact, I've set the course schedule up, the recommended course daily outline to follow a daily Monday through Thursday schedule, and that kind of gives you the weekend to catch up, if you will, if you've gotten behind in some things. So let's take a look at the syllabus. You can go to that link on Blackboard, or ideally I would go ahead and print it out and take a look at it. So, again, the course is designed to be an introduction to both the science and the profession of psychology. It will assist you in developing a foundation of basic knowledge in order to pursue further studies in psychology, should you do so. We will take a look at topics like learning, memory, sensation and perception, personality, lifespan development, the biology of behavior. We'll study something everybody can relate to called stress and health, emotions, stress and health. We all may feel stressed getting through everything here in 5 weeks. We'll also take a look at psychological disorders, social psychology, research methods. My own personal favorite topic is states of consciousness, and that gets into things like sleep and dreams and hypnosis and things like that. And we'll also take a look at approaches to psychotherapy. So I think there's every semester, at the end of the semester in this particular course, I do a course survey where I have students rank all the topics we've studied from their most favorite to their least favorite. And what I would tell you is virtually every topic is somebody's most favorite and somebody else's least favorite. So I think there's something here for everybody. And I hope you really enjoy the course. As far as the textbook is concerned, we will be using the 11th edition of David Meyer's textbook called Exploring Psychology in Modules. It's a great book. I know Dave Myers. He's a professor at Hope College in Holland, Michigan. And he is a great guy and a great teacher. Students love the guy. He's somebody who rides his bike to class every day, even in the winter up there. and during lunch, he'll play hoops it up basketball with the students. He's a great guy. I think you'll really enjoy the textbook. I've gotten to have dinner with Dave several times, once in Austin, once in Dallas, and once in Chicago. So I can't say enough about Dave and his textbook. I think you'll love it. So if you look at the first page of your syllabus there, as far as the course requirements are concerned, number one, read the textbook. I think to do well in the course, it's helpful to read at a pace that keeps up with the course syllabus. And if you look on page 4 of your syllabus, here's the recommended daily outline that I would encourage you to do. This first day, just watch this video, but then tomorrow, Wednesday, June 1st, listen to my audio lecture while you watch my PowerPoint slides on the topic neuroscience and behavior. I've tried to duplicate what I would do in the classroom online. So it's not just reading the textbook and taking tests. There are PowerPoint slides to look at. There are audio lectures. There are some video lectures similar to this. There are articles to read and so on, just like we would have in the classroom. Basically, on June the 1st, you should be studying psychology as a profession and science. And corresponding modules in the textbook are listed there in your syllabus, 1, 2, 35, and a couple of appendices. Modules are basically chapters chopped up into smaller sections. I don't know about you, but I'd rather read 3 10-page modules than one 30-page chapter. There's something about feeling like you've accomplished something. And so I've gone with the modular edition of this textbook. If you look on page 4, it's basically what topic ideally you should study on what day and the corresponding modules to read to perhaps help you better understand the lectures. There are students who make it through this course without ever buying the textbook, quite frankly. The tests come strictly out of my lectures and notes and all of that sort of thing. So the book's there as much as anything to help explain things that maybe you found not as clear as you had hoped from watching and listening to lectures. So, if you get behind this summer in your reading, don't fret about that, but I would fret if I got behind in watching and listening to lectures and taking notes on those kinds of things. I don't know about you, but when I was a student, I had a couple of pet peeves. And one was I was never very good at outguessing professors regarding what in the textbook was important. I would get my textbooks and I would underline stuff and I would write notes in the margins and I put little asterisks next to things I thought was important. And then none of that stuff was on the test. That will not happen in my course. If you look at beginning on page 5, there are specific learning objectives for each topic. And as far as learning objectives for reading about the material in the textbook. And consequently, if you want to know what I wanted you to get out of reading the textbook, read the objectives for the module before you read the module. And then when you're reading the module, anything that is listed in these learning objectives, aha, that's the stuff to underline and write notes about and all that stuff. If it's not in the learning objectives, well, you still might want to do that for your own interest, but you're not going to get tested on it. Okay? So that's one pet peeve I had that you don't have to worry about. Another pet peeve I had was a professor would yak about something forever, and then there'd be a couple of questions on the test about it. And then stuff that the professor hardly even mentioned. There were all kinds of questions on the test about. That will not happen in this course either. What's emphasized, what I have emphasized in lectures and assignments and things like that, that's what will be on the test. So I've taken the guesswork out of that for you too. All right. So back to the first page. Regularly check the announcements on Blackboard. When I want to communicate with the class, I will post an announcement on Blackboard. If it's something I want to make sure you get besides that, I might also send an email to everyone in the class. So check your ACC email regularly, daily, I would dare say. And same with the announcements on Blackboard. Point number 3, exercise self-discipline, because more so than you would during the regular semester, because again, this course is going to move fast. Try to keep pace with the suggested course daily outline. Okay? If in my opinion you've fallen off the pace, I'll try and contact you first. And if we can't work something out, I'll drop you from the class, because I don't want you to end up getting a failing grade or something just because you've gotten so far behind that you're never going to get caught up. Okay, point number 4. There will be 4 online tests, and if you'll look over here on page 3, there's information about the tests. The tests will be in a multiple choice true-false format. There will also be a bonus essay question, which I will email to everyone, where you can get extra 5 points added onto your test score. This isn't extra credit. I don't offer retests or extra credit or something like this. This is bonus points. Extra credit's something that some people offer for people who are in the hole and trying to somehow get out of it. I don't do that. This is bonus points. This is like, I finished the test and I can even get some more points added onto it. Not because I have a terrible score. Okay. So I will email these bonus essay questions to you, and again, it's open book, open notes, but it'll be something to give some thought to, and then email me a typed response that you email to me as an attachment, and it's due the same day that you have completed and submitted the test. So again, it's something that you hand in at the time of the test, not something you do a while later to try and get your score up there. This is extra points, not extra credit. So the tests, again, are open notes, open book. They're taken on Blackboard. Generally, this summer, you will have 5 to 6 days from the time a test becomes available to complete the test. Test 4, however, must be completed by the next day. And something I would tell you about test 4 is it's just test 4. It's not a comprehensive final. It's just over the topics that we study at the end. If you are a student who needs some kind of accommodation to address a disability, please send me your accommodations letter as soon as possible so that I can make arrangements for those things. If you simply, your accommodation is you need extra time or something like that, it's not going to be a problem because you get several days to do the test. If you needed other accommodations, though, for testing, then perhaps I would need to make special arrangements. So give me your accommodation letter as soon as possible. Again, if you look on page 4 and 5 of your course syllabus, you'll see that the first test will become available on Wednesday. That's a week from tomorrow. Assuming that you're watching this video on the first day of class, May 31st, which is a Tuesday. But the first test will be available on Wednesday, June the 8th. You must have completed it and submitted it on Blackboard by the following Monday. Notice there, Monday, June 13th is the deadline for completing test 1. So again, I've set it up to where you got the whole weekend to catch up on things. Test 2 will become available on Tuesday, June the 14th, and it must be completed by Monday, June the 20th. Test 3 will become available on Wednesday, June the 22nd, and must be completed and submitted by Monday, June 27th, and then test 4 will be available on Thursday, June 30th, but the semester ends the next day. So that's when you have to have test 4 completed. And you know, that's right before the 4th of July weekend, so that's good. You don't want that hanging over your head when you want to go out and enjoy the holidays. Notice one important date here on page 5 of your course syllabus, and that is on June the 24th is the last day that you can withdraw from the course if you find yourself, you know, way behind and not doing well. Okay, so that is point 4. Something else I would tell you, though, is there's really no reason not to do well on the test. Posted on Blackboard will be test review questions before each test. And these review questions come right out of the test. So if you want to know what to study, study the review questions. Also, you can study the learning objectives as questions to prepare yourself for the test. Also, I will have an online live test review session that anyone, you know, I'll set a date for when it is. It'll usually be, often it's the actual day that the test becomes available. I'll often have a test review session, and then right after the session, make the test available online. And you know, I would encourage you to attend the review session, and you know, we tend to go over those review questions. Students can ask me questions on anything that they're unclear on, and so you know, that's ought to be a good way to do it. I would add to this that I will have weekly office hours on Monday evenings from 7 o'clock at night until 8 o'clock at night on Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. And you know, this is a time when you can come online and chat and ask questions and all that sort of thing. If that's not a convenient time for you, you can email me, and if we need to have a special meeting, you know, we can make an appointment for that. And again, those things will be done on Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. Okay, so you know, test review questions, learning objectives in the syllabus, open book, open notes, days to complete the test. There's no reason not to do well in this course. All right. On the other hand, you can't get together with another student and this is what's known as collusion, and together come up with the answers on the tests. That would be cheating. And you know, if that was discovered, that would result in a failing score on that test. So please don't do anything that foolish. The other thing that's involved in the other requirement, and you know, there's not really daily homework to do and turn in. It's daily homework to do in order to be prepared for the test on the day it's scheduled, and to get the testing done as quickly as you can, because you don't want to really go beyond the idea. Ideally, you don't want to go beyond the date that it's made available, because then you're studying old material and you ought to be studying the new material that's already being introduced for the next test. So that would be my suggestion, is to, stick with the outline, and on the day that the test is first made available, do it then. Okay? After the deadline for the tests and everyone's completed the test, then I will compose statistics for the class, and I will post those statistics as an announcement on Blackboard, and you can see how you did compared to other people. Okay. The other assignment that is related to this course is I want everyone to read independently of the textbook, to read in my syllabus, I call it a self-help popular psychology type book. It could be something more technical than that. And then, submit a one-page single-space type-written book review, and there'll be a place on Blackboard to submit it. Everyone in the class must read a different book, and I must approve the title. And the reason for that is I will not approve a title I don't think will get you a good grade. Okay? There will be a link on Blackboard to books that have already been chosen and approved, so you know not to pick one of those. But there's at the end of the syllabus, I have a sample book report here that you can see. And again, it's one-page, single-spaced. You can play with the margins. You can go down to about size 8 font, and I still won't have any trouble reading it. The report will have, your name, PSYC 2301, the section and synonym number, and then a little bibliographic entry, which is, the name of the author, the year the book was written, the title of the book, and the name of the publisher. And then a section of information about the author. Basically, I want to know, how did the author become an authority on this topic? Where did the author get their training? Where did the author go to school? Where has the author worked? How did they become an expert on this topic? That's what I want to know there. I couldn't care less if they've ever been on some daytime talk show. Being on a talk show doesn't make you an expert. Being an expert gets you on the talk show. I don't want a listing of all the other books they've written. I want to know basically, how did they become an authority on this topic? And then a section on the thesis. In other words, what were the main points of the book? In the sample report, I've done bullets, but it doesn't have to be bullets. It could be paragraphs. But I want to know, what was the main point? What's the thesis? And then finally, an evaluation section, and by that I mean, how did the author support or fail to support the thesis? Have they, is there a long list of references in the back of the book? I can think of some books I've read. Half the book was a list of references. Well, that's a book that's very well documented. But, one of these books that they don't even have a list of references, that's usually a red flag that, they're trying to make themselves out into being an expert that knows everything and nobody else ever knew anything about the topic before, which is a fallacy. Do they have, do they offer statistics of studies that have been done by themselves and other people, and that sort of thing? How did they support, if they don't have a long list of references to support their ideas, I would criticize that in my report. Okay? For example, the author ought to be qualified. I've banned books like Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, because Dr. John Gray, who wrote it, has a mail order doctorate from a school in Canada that has since been shut down. And it's all just his opinion. And the guy's laughing all the way to the bank, but it's not a book that's a really authoritative source of anything. It's all his opinion on differences between men and women. If you want to read a good book about how women think or men think, read something like The Female Brain by Luann Brisendine or The Male Brain by Luann Brisendine. Half the book, it's a relatively small paperback, and half the book is a list of references supporting all of her points. And she's a professor at, I want to say, I think she's a professor at Stanford Medical School. So, that's the kind of a book I would look for. If I were you, when I would go shopping for a book, and there's books you can check out from the ACC library. I'd probably go to Half Price Books and look for a good one. Or you could go online if you could get one quickly. Maybe you luck out and during the break you just read a book like this. But again, it could be a self-help kind of psychology-related book, or it could be something more technical. But start thinking about it today, and email me what books you're thinking about reading, and then I'll let you know if it meets my approval or not, and then I can, once I approve it, I'll put it on the list of books that are already taken. Okay? So, hopefully I've explained adequately what the book report's all about. As far as your grade in the course is concerned, if you look at the bottom of page 3 and the top of page 4, your grade in the course will be your average on the 4 tests plus the book report. The book report counts the same as a test. Each of those things is worth 20% of your grade. So as far as the grading key is concerned, on things. 90 to 100 is an A, 80 to 89 is a B, 70 to 79 is a C, 60 to 69 is a D, and less than 60 would be failing. Again, there's no reason to not do well in this course. One other thing I would caution you about, though, is plagiarism, which would be a form of dishonesty. Also, I cover these things on page 3 of the course syllabus. This hasn't really been a problem over the years. I did have a student this last semester, though, that I don't feel like they wrote their book report. And a dead set clue to me is when it's not in the right format. This isn't the kind of review you would read on Amazon or on a book jacket or something like this. This has very specific things, information about the author. What is the thesis? What the evaluation? In other words, how did the author support the thesis? It's not just a one paragraph thing. It's one page, but there's very specific sections, and it's always a dead giveaway to me. If the format isn't correct, then maybe the student didn't write it. Years ago, this has happened rarely. You quote somebody else to your heart's content as long as you put quotation marks around it and you cite your source. But when you try to pass it off as your own work, that's called plagiarism. I had a student years ago in this course turn in a book report, and it was in the wrong format, and I thought, So I called him into my office, and I said, I need to talk to you about your book report. You didn't write this. Oh, yeah, I did. Every word of it's my own. I said, no, you didn't write it. I turned on my computer, and I said, let me show you where I found it. And he said, yeah, I didn't write it. I said to him, how much did you pay for this? Because he bought it online. He'd said $30, and I said, it's not even that good of a report, It would rate about a C. If you're going to spend $30 on something, you ought to buy an A report, not a C report. And now that I know you didn't do it, it's a 0, it's an F. You don't want to average that into with the rest of your scores. Over the last couple of decades, I've only had a handful of students try and do something this foolish. So I trust no one will this summer. So I think I've covered most everything that needs to be covered during this orientation. On page 9, I talk about some things to consider when you're choosing a book. That the author should be qualified. The book should be based on sound scientific theory. It should not promise the impossible, like, recovering from depression in 3 hours. That's a little far-fetched. There's a book out there called Toilet Training in Less Than a Day. Really? It's a catchy title. Um, and so on. So, some things to think about when you're choosing a book. The only other thing I might mention here is my teaching philosophy, which is on the bottom of page 2. I like to have a good time. Of course, this is online, and you can't have as much fun really online as you can in the classroom. I feel like if I'm not enjoying class, neither are the students, and to a certain extent, that would include online. If I wasn't enjoying teaching online, then you probably wouldn't enjoy taking courses online. I've certainly, every year to renew my psychology license, I have to acquire a certain number of continuing education courses, credits. And so, in recent years, that means online stuff because of COVID. And quite frankly, I've taken some pretty boring online things, and then I've taken some other ones that were fascinating. So hopefully, the thing that I present to you, you will find fascinating. I like to infuse lectures with real-life examples of psychology in practice. I like to maximize use of media. There will be video clips for you to watch, audio clips for you to listen to. There's PowerPoint slides, there's some video lectures, and so on. Hopefully I'll make the material relevant to your vocational and your personal aspirations, and to help you identify the ways that psychology permeates virtually every aspect of our lives, and to ignite in you an appreciation for research. Again, without the science of psychology, the practice of psychology, the profession of psychology would have no credibility. Okay, so shoot me an email introducing yourself. This is basically how I take roll. I have to certify within a couple of days of the course starting that you're here and attending class. And the way I do that is by making sure that you've emailed me and introduced yourself to me. So please do that as soon as you can. Tell me something interesting about yourself. What do you like to do for fun? What kind of subjects are you interested in? What's your major? What's your career goal? That kind of thing. Okay? Nice to meet you. Look forward to spending this quick summer session exploring psychology with you.